Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Law of Attraction podcast. I'm Laura. If you don't know me already, I'm your local lovely life coach. And I'm here tonight with one of the most wonderful astrologers, Kyle Thomas. And I'm so excited to have him on. I'm trying not to fangirl here. But Kyle, tell me a little bit about you. Tell us about your business and what you've been up to in your life.
First off, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on today. I love connecting with people all over the world, and I just think that what you're doing is so important at this time when a lot of people need hope and guidance, especially when there's so much, chaos and challenging aspects that are happening, worldwide. So thank you for sharing your light and allowing me to also do that as well. As you said, my name is Kyle Thomas. I am a global astrologer. I work with Cosmopolitan Magazine, horoscope.com, astrology.com, and politicians, influencers, celebrities all over the world. And I really love to use astrology essentially in a way to also help people find guidance and understand themselves and the world better, but to ultimately allow them to see the path that will ultimately fulfill them as well. So it's a little bit about me.
I love it. How did you get into astrology?
Well, interestingly enough, I've always been very spiritual. From the womb, I guess you would say, I have been very connected to, energy, I guess you would, say, just whether that be with other people or divinity or nature, all of that kind of ebb and flow,
Mm.
has been very easy for me to touch, throughout my entire life. And so I was actually raised Catholic, and, that upbringing really infused me with a desire to connect with, like I said, like a higher spiritual realm. And, over time, I just became more fascinated with myth and, all sorts of, I guess you just different lenses of looking at what God is, to humanity.
Mm.
And I've always been kind of naturally gifted with, intuition. I do have some clairvoyant ability. And when I was really young, I would just kind of interpret and give predictions to people, no matter whether or not they had asked for it at that time. But I really found that it was really beautiful to look to the stars, and I was so obsessed with, the way that they reflect our emotions, they reflect our movement throughout our lives. And
Mm.
so literally since I was like 8 years old, I'd been reading about astrology, studying it, and I wanted to learn about love. I wanted to learn about when things would happen to me or other people, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
I mean, we've got very similar life paths. Oddly, I mean, I was raised quite Christian. Same thing that when you kind of get into these roots, almost
Hmm.
with like Catholicism and Christianity, they kind of said don't go down the routes that they're kind of the devil a lot of time. And it's then you're like, but if you're being pulled towards it, that could be quite
Yeah,
difficult. And you have
totally.
to sort of strike up your own path, which clearly you've done really well. And when I started to become really excited about the stars was when I was younger, and I started to sort of read horoscopes, like the ones that you write in magazines, and they
Yeah.
were they were always so apt. There was always something factual in them, and I'd go and read them,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, and I'd be like, these are really truthful, and I got more and more into it. But a lot of people say, that the stars don't govern anything. I mean, I think that's crazy. But
Hmm.
how would you explain to somebody who didn't believe in astrology? What would you say to somebody like that?
Absolutely. Well, everything is connected. We can see that, a small, interaction over here ultimately has a bigger effect in our lives and in the world at large. You could look at, as simple as the stock markets
Yeah.
or, even it's funny because I live in Los Angeles, California, and we have had a ton of fires, and the
Mm.
perfect example of that is look at the small little events that have sparked the fire and then created these very intense wildfires all over California.
Mm.
And so it's everything has that effect, in our lives and government and culture and trends. Even think about trends, a
Mm.
celebrity wears something once and then suddenly, like a perfect example is like the Justin Bieber hair that took
Yeah.
over the, fashion. And, so that's why I always do look at kind of the cause and effect that we have. But the thing that I always do say too is that, as above, so below.
Hmm.
The way that humanity wanted to understand their place in the cosmos, since the birth of mankind, is that they wanted to chart. They saw that patterns were happening, and that's a big thing for me too. I always talk about the patterns that's going on in someone's life,
Yeah.
or collectively as well, because we can see that these kinds of cycles are repeating, and that's what gives astrology the predictive quality.
Hmm.
But then I always try to talk about it in a productive way as well, saying, well, if you know this cycle is coming, you can use it to your advantage, whether that's for love, money, etc.
Yeah.
And but just kind of summing that up, like I said, is that humanity wanted to understand their place, and they saw that the planets were always moving and the stars were affecting them, and so by seeing that reflection, they placed themselves in the stars
Hmm.
and gave meaning to our lives. And I just love the fact that it's chartable, and I
Yeah.
and I think that that empowers people if you use it to the right way.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people have the sort of misconception where they, you see just for the sun sign and you think, oh, well, I can't have the same day as like all
Yes.
these other hundreds of thousands of people who are born on the same day as me. And it's like, that's so
Millions,
over, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's like so oversimplified. And I sort of said, my partner's like this. And I'm like, no, look, I say like your natal chart is yours,
Absolutely.
it belongs to you. There's very few people who, unless they're born the same second, same minute, same place, same time, it's
Exactly.
you know and I was listening, I can't remember if it was you, I was listening to an astrologer the other day, said like don't show your natal chart to anybody that you don't trust, because it gives them so much information about you.
Hmm.
What can you find out? I mean, explain for the people who don't. I mean, I'm not an expert, I know a little bit about it, but I know, with your natal chart, this is where the stars and the sun and all the planets kind of align when you're born. And
Yes.
you've got the 12 houses. Could you briefly explain what the 12 houses are and what they mean?
Absolutely. So the thing about your natal chart is it's essentially your blueprint of your entire life. And so, we do look at the exact time, place, and date of birth, and we compute basically the circle, the chart of your entire life. And so we can talk about, the placement of your planets, where they are, in how in the houses, in the signs, all of that kind of interaction, because it gives a very distinct color and flavor to the way that you approach life.
Mm.
And, it's funny because I really do focus a lot on the sun sign, because it's the strongest, the
Yeah.
sun is the strongest force in this solar system. But you're right, there's so much more complexity
Mm.
beyond that. We do you can look at your moon sign, your rising sign. I really do focus a lot on the rising sign as well.
Yeah.
And so the rising sign would be at essentially like 9 a.m. on the clock, if you were looking at it in that perspective.
Right. Okay.
And that is the exact moment that the sun was rising around the earth. And so the thing about this here is that that rising sign creates the start of the chart. That is the birth of the chart. And that
Right.
helps align each of the other houses in your chart. And as you were saying, there are 12 houses. And so the thing about the rising sign is that it shows, important life patterns that will be important to you. It's how people perceive you. It's how you partner with people, especially your first marriage. It talks about job choice, and all of that temperament is very intrinsically placed there.
Mm.
And, then you obviously would look at your sun sign as well. And that's what I always tell people as well. Read for your sun sign, read for your rising sign if you have it.
Mm.
You can obviously go to a professional astrologer like myself, and I take that information and we'll be able to create a chart, but you can also look it up online,
Mhm.
and start to get more familiar with that. There's even apps online. Um, I actually love Time Passages. That one's really great, for anyone that's looking. That one's just fantastic. But yeah, so that's a good place there. Anyways, going to kind of touch a base about what you were saying about the houses. Each house rules different areas of your life.
Mhm.
So, for instance, the fifth house I call it the sector of fertility.
Okay.
Other astrologers will call it the sector of true love. Other astrologers will call it the sector of creativity. Well, the thing about this fifth house is that it rules essentially all of that passion and pleasure. So, pregnancy, children, love, romance, passion, creativity, art, fun, expression, hobbies, all of that kind of exciting, vibrant, fiery energy. And naturally, from like a basic chart, the fifth house is ruled by Leo, and that's very, very energetic um, uh, understanding of what a Leo is and what
Mm.
that represents.
Yeah, the element of fire.
So exactly, so that but interestingly enough, your fifth house, depending on your chart, could be ruled by Taurus,
Mm-hmm.
and that means that that fifth house energy is really infused by that Tauran sort of cusp energy. And if you have planets there, it gives extra information in that specific sector. Another big factor that I look in the chart is certainly the 10th house. People are always wanting to know about power and fame and success and career achievement, and especially in Hollywood, which is where I live. And working with politicians and celebrities, they always want more. And that's the thing that I always do see, no matter who you are, wherever you are in your life and in your growth and evolution, is that we always want more. And that's one of my favorite things about astrology, is that
Mm.
it shows when the door is open to you so that you can get more of it. It's, even if you're not single, let's say you've been with someone for 10 years, well, you want more love with
Mm.
each other. You
Mm.
want more connection with each other. It's, that's one of the beautiful things about life, is that you can grow and always evolve to the next chapter as well. So, going back to that sector of fame and career achievement, well, that's the midheaven. That would be the noon 12 p.m. Part of the, I guess you would say, the clock.
Yeah.
And again, that would be about your legacy, the impact that you leave upon the world. And for most people, it really does resonate with their professional life.
Mm.
And, if someone is going to be a leader, if someone is going to be famous, you would see those kinds of things there. But it also shows about how you are affecting other people as well, and like I said, that legacy factor. Because to be completely honest, I have a lot of people that are aspiring, that want to become famous, and they're
Mm.
not going to be, and it's, there is a huge power to be um, infusing your life with visualization, or the law of attraction,
Yeah.
or, meditation, or candle work, or any of those kinds of things. And I do believe that we all have the tools of the cosmos inside of us. But there are certain people that are predisposed to certain factors over other people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. It's really exciting. I think that, because I work with law of attraction, and it's the namesake of my business. But what I found is that some people, I always say, like, God's rejections, God's protection. It's like some people try and manifest things for themselves, and it
Yeah.
never comes to fruition. And so
Mhm.
they're going like, oh God, this doesn't work. This isn't
Mhm.
working for me. And it's because they're trying to manifest something that isn't for them. And a lot of people that
Absolutely.
want kind of riches and fame and all that sort of stuff, actually they find that when they do get there, for some people, it's not what they thought it was going to be. And actually, it's this kind of, I call it like an Easter egg. They're kind of hollow on
Yeah.
in the inside. They look all shiny on the outside, but they're hollow on the inside. And for me, even when I started with law of attraction, I kind of got a bit trapped in that a little bit, and then I'm trying to kind of pull back a little bit more to what serves my soul,
Mhm.
more than
Mhm.
serving everything on this plane. Do you find that with astrology that you can? What about kind of past lives or anything like that? Can you see anything like that, or is it all very much kind of about this realm, this lifetime?
Well, it's so funny because past lives is something that has come up very significantly in the last, like, I would say, year and a half of my work as
There you
an
go.
astrologer, as an artist,
Mm.
and, now that I'm working on such a large mainstream level in astrology and with people, I'm also working with a lot of celebrity psychics all over the world as well. And so for me, whereas I do say that, like, I have, some certain, psychic or clairvoyant abilities, I'm never branding myself as a psychic, because
Mm.
that's not who I am at the end of the day. But
Yeah.
we all have different gifts
Mhm.
and talents that, whether that's, you could be very empathic, you could be very intuitive. I know certain people that can touch something, and
Mm.
they can really read the energy of it. And I think it's really about being tapped into your vibration and everything around you, so that you can be more receptive. to what the universe is trying to reveal to you at any given moment. But going back to, the thought of past lives, I've certainly felt in my life that, I'd met someone before, or didn't understand why I like loved someone so passionately and the relationship didn't last as long, or, these very interesting synchronistic
Mm.
experiences with different souls and individuals in this lifetime. And I wanted to, understand more of what that was. And then suddenly, as I was rising in my career in this trajectory and meeting other psychics, they would actually bring up and be like, "Oh, hey, yeah, that ex, he was a soulmate." And I'm like, "Whoa," like they knew this person's name, they knew all about our past. And none of that stuff is online. You can't research those things,
Mm.
And the same thing is that they would talk about other people. And so it started to make me think like, okay, what else is there? And how can I chart that? And that's the one thing that I love about astrology too, is that when someone goes to a psychic or an empath or an intuitive, they can tell you certain sort of energetic frequencies that they're picking up in your aura or in your spirit. For instance, a thing that I'll hear a lot is, a psychic will be like, "Oh, you're very pink." I see that there's a lot of pink for you in March. Well, for a lot of people, they're like, "What is that woo woo,
Yeah.
very mystical speech? What is that? And what
What
does
does it
that
mean?
mean?"
Yeah, it's like, what
And,
does
and
that mean?
yeah, and how do I use it,
Yeah.
ultimately to my benefit? Well, the thing that I always see with astrology is that I can give them tangible understandings and say,
Mm.
well, Venus is in your sector of love and is highlighting this sort of situation, or you're having an eclipse in your career, so I see that you're going to be rising very massively. All of those important triggers. But then going to the nodes, that is really important in astrology. And the nodes are always moving because they show where the eclipse cycles are being highlighted at
Okay.
any given time. So when you're born, that nodal axis, so your north node and your south node, are going to indicate what you're taking from past lives, integrating into your life now, and it's just kind of like a safety zone, and that would be the south node. That's
Mm.
very focused on the lessons that you're carrying with, and it's that safety zone. And then the north node is about what you're striving for in this lifetime and
Okay.
where you're going, and the things that you need to rise and empower yourself within to truly reach your greatest destiny in this lifetime. And it's really funny because there's a lot of people that I'll do these readings for, and they think that their destiny is their career, or they think that their destiny is love, and I'm like, it's actually not. It could be your destiny is that you need to learn more in this lifetime. You
Mm.
need to accept more responsibility for family karma, or you need to build a family, or you need to understand a better attachment with money, or you need to embrace your spirituality or your sexuality, or any of these kinds of things. And, again, using that idea of the nodes, you can always see that when, you're looking at two charts of two people, when there are nodal connections,
Mm.
that really often shows that there is either a past life connection, or that this is a life where you're connecting and you will build in a lifetime to come. And another way that I always see that too is if you have a lot of planets that are in the same exact place as someone,
Yeah.
it denotes a lot of similarity between you. And they're like, it's funny because, I've, I had an ex that I obviously had his chart and looked at it,
We all do
and
it. We all do
yeah, right, right.
it.
And it's crazy because I've never seen in a insane amount of planets that were in the exact same place, and our nodal axes
Mm.
being connected. And so it's interesting because that was the person that these psychics were picking up on,
Yeah.
and they were like, he's a soulmate, he's a twin flame, he's very important in your life, you come and go, you cycle. And I was like, yeah, but when the interesting thing is that I had this one psychic say to me, she goes, if she's like, you guys have been married for like 500 years, the last 500 years. She's like, that's why it's so intense. But she
Yeah.
goes, And here's the thing, I can't quantify that. I can't
No,
even with astrology, but I can
it's not
certainly see
linear
that
anyway, is it? Time. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. But she goes, if you are to be married in this life, he is going to have to do a lot of changing and growth and stepping up and to be at your level, because you've evolved and you're ready. But like, if
Yeah.
he's not, so like, don't wait on him. Don't try to force him. And I was like, okay. And interestingly enough, I can see that in the charts. I can see that there is this square to the nodal axis from his Venus. He would have to step up. He would have to evolve. And it's exactly what she said. So that's the thing that I always love about no matter what medium you are using
Mm.
to understand the divinity of life and mankind, everything is still going to be reflecting in a very similar sort of way.
Yeah.
You can look at different kinds of astrology worldwide. You can look at different kinds of theologies or mysticism. And I do, like I said, really believe at the end of the day that each of them are a lens that we see of
Hmm.
God.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. I agree because, I have like I sort of channel from source, and I
Yeah,
like you, I've been spiritual all my life. I had a very sort of clear drawing to kind of witchcraft when I was younger, but Christianity was I was really frightened to go with my gifts, and always been
totally.
psychic. Always had like always been the weirdo really out of everyone, and being like, does anybody else do this? And nobody else is doing it, and then I got into law of
Hmm.
attraction and managed to start manifesting things, and I was always kind of really drawn to astrology. And then recently, I started to notice the people that I was collecting. I'm an
Yes.
Aquarius, so I'm an Aquarius sun, I'm an Aquarius moon, and I'm a Capricorn rising. So it's like, Aquarius, a lot of Aquarius going on, and there's a lot of air in my chart and a lot of fire. But obviously my opposition is fire. And I collect people, and they are exactly diametrically opposed. I'm on the 29th of January, and they're all like the 30th of July, so they're exact opposite. And I've got all my
Yes.
best friends all have the same birthday within like a matter of days of each other. So I'm kind of thinking, well, this is bizarre, because I'm not doing this consciously. This is that I'm drawn to these people. And then,
Yes.
I look at the people that I've considered like soulmates or lovers that have really, really influenced me. They've all been Aries, like very fiery energies, and Sagittariuses. And my fiance is a Sagittarius now. And it's like the way that you kind of, I always say to people who are like, oh, I don't believe in astrology. I'm like, go and look at your chart, and then go
Hmm.
and look at who you love and who you're attracted to in your life, because you'll start to realize that if you're an air energy, you're collecting fire people. You start to kind of bring people into your life that
Hmm.
work with you, on an astrological basis. But
That's literally the exact same thing that really triggered me back in the day of looking at, why I was like, why are all my best friends having the same birthday? Why are all the people that I like and have crushes on have the same birthdays? I was like,
mm,
this doesn't make sense. And to this day, that same effect still happens.
yeah, same. I mean, I literally go around collecting people, and I'm like, oh my god, I really love you. Are you a Leo? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I knew it. And they're like, how do you know? It's like, it's the only people I like. But it,
Yeah.
it is bizarre, and I think when you think about kind of I'm bringing more of astrology into my practice. It was funny that you mentioned about the North nodes there and about the nodes, because I hadn't really learnt about the nodes very much. And I did a tarot reading for a lady who works with nodal energy and talks about that as part of like your karmic destiny and your life path for
Yes.
your for yourself. And I was like, oh, I need to learn a lot more about these nodes. And then, funnily enough, you've just brought it up. So it's like spirit's going, yo, you need to check out your nodes. So
Yes.
sounds kind of rude, that, doesn't it? Check your notes.
I I love it though because it's really I think it's helpful, and it's really interesting because here's the thing. I feel like the nodes are a guidebook, a general um, path that you can take, but you don't have to take that.
Yeah,
You don't have to accept that in this
yeah,
life. And it's the interesting thing that I always talk about with astrology is that it's predictive. It
yeah.
is going to be that blueprint, and it's very hard to change your astrology, but through conscious awareness you can make more active decisions. Like,
Mhm,
I've seen in people's charts where they may be consistently running from relationships, they
mhm.
may consistently sabotage them. Well, it doesn't mean that they're cursed to do that for their whole life. It's a part of their karma, it's a part of their evolution to
Yeah,
realize that they have to work in a different manner in order to have a more fulfilling relationship,
Yeah.
and it's so crazy because my north node is in my 12th house, nearly conjunct my ascendant, and it's in Aries. And here I am being a leader in the spiritual realm, putting my vision and my thoughts out there. And it's crazy because that's literally what it's beautiful to me because I had this realization like probably about a couple months ago. I was like, oh my God, I'm living in my destiny right now. Like it's
I love it.
actually here and happening, And so that's why I just feel grateful to be, hopefully making the world a better place and allowing people to awaken all
Mm.
of the power that is inside of them.
That's beautiful. Like I completely agree with you. And like what I've seen of you, obviously I heard you on the Wise Ass podcast, because I was on there and that's how we kind of got connected. But
Yeah.
I just, when you hear these people who are like yourself that are bringing light to the world, it's an energy that you can't deny. I've been getting chills throughout you saying things. I'm getting those like, they're like God bumps. You know what I mean? It's like they're not goosebumps, they're God bumps. When you get those, something good is going on. That's my sort of point of view. But you talk about the Great Awakening, and like coming up, we've got obviously the Great Conjunction, which is happening towards
Yes.
the end of this year, which is a really big astrological event. And from my perspective,
Yes.
as somebody who's not hugely knowing, I'm like, this sounds massive. And it's also changing over to Aquarius, which for me,
Yes.
I'm like, this is my age. I'm coming into age or something. So I'm really excited. I mean,
Yeah.
can you tell us a bit more about the Great Conjunction, what you think about it as an astrologist?
Absolutely. So the thing is that, as an astrologer, we knew, or like, any astrologer that was looking into 2020, we knew that this year was going to be insane
Mm,
because we have so many different configurations of the planets that are sort of, causing us to evolve, in our personal lives and also collectively.
yeah.
We're ending patterns, we're beginning new ones.
Mm,
And so we've had, very powerful conjunctions. And a conjunction is when two planets are in the exact same place in the sky. And that represents a whole new beginning until those planets meet again. And, that is a very significant learning curve for us. And,
mm.
I was even talking about the coronavirus and all of the things that was going to be bringing into our lives very early on, because we knew that literally, I believe it was January, where is this? January 12th, right? Yeah, January 12th. Saturn and Pluto were conjunct, and
Mhm.
Saturn and Pluto had been in Capricorn for several years. Saturn since the end of 2017, and Pluto since 2008. And Capricorn energy is all about, the structures of our lives, governments, big business,
Yeah,
legacies, all of that kind of focus, and can be very controlling and
yeah,
very, focusing on the rules, the regulations, and all of that. Well, with this energy festering there and Pluto being rebirth, but also corruption and viruses and death, and it has ties to like the phoenix.
yeah,
And Saturn being, hardship and challenges and life lessons and
yeah,
karma, with them uniting, that it exploded this sort of energy for us. And then Jupiter also being in Capricorn, spreading all of that energy. And that's the thing about Jupiter, it expands and it releases that energy to make everything that it touches more.
mm,
And so, we knew that this huge evolution was going to be coming into our lives. And then plus this year we've had very powerful retrogrades forcing us
mm.
to review, forcing us
Yeah,
to turn within. We had Venus retrograde. We're currently in Mars retrograde. We have a Mercury retrograde that's about to be happening. All of this intense energy that's focusing on the past is about closure.
mm,
And that's because I truly believe the great gem at the end of the year, the greatest blessing we can be given is this great conjunction.
mm.
Because what we have is we have Jupiter, and Jupiter is miracles, blessings. I always talk about Jupiter in the sense of a guardian angel. Wherever it goes, it protects us, it brings us blessings, it just radiates all of these beautiful opportunities for growth. And then we have Saturn, which rules, like I said, the structures of society and the ones that we build in our lives. Well, over the last 200 years, we've predominantly had great conjunctions in Earth signs. And the great conjunction creates the power in the world for roughly about 20 years from that moment in time, because they happen, like I said, roughly about once every 20 years.
Yeah.
So with them being predominantly in the earth sign element of Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, that means that those energetic frequencies were the ones that were the most powerful worldwide. So we naturally think about, okay, materialism,
Mm.
money. We think about consumerism. We everything that has to do with the physical world, the abuse of the world's resources.
Yeah.
We don't just have millionaires now; we have billionaires now. We have all of this huge focus upon that greed and all of those kinds of things. Well, the thing is that I'm also loving so much, and it just gives me it fills me with light, is the fact that we are also living through a paradigm shift in 2020
Yeah.
as well. Because now, for the next 150 years roughly, the great conjunctions will be happening in air signs.
Mm-hmm.
So Aquarius, Libra, and Gemini.
Mm.
And so the thing is, just because they're happening in those signs, it doesn't mean that those people will be the most powerful. But what
Right.
those elements represent
Mm.
will become where power is associated during this point in time. So the thought leaders,
Yeah.
those are the people that are going to be the ones that are truly affecting the world and creating more of a change. So celebrities that have more philanthropy, or
Mm.
politicians that are focusing on equal rights, or the rights of just humanity moving forward. That's going to be really important. So we're going to have breakthroughs in science, we're going to have breakthroughs in technology, we're going to have breakthroughs in philosophy,
Yeah.
astrology. Aquarius rules astrology. We have all of these important, really wonderful things that are coming into our consciousness. The thing is here, though, is that even though it takes place on December 21st of 2020, it's not going to be like an instant shift. I do believe that we need to watch on that day, around that day, to see, the seeds of things, because the
Yeah.
conjunction is the seed that's being planted. It's the beginning. And then it grows over those 20 years. So we already, it's one of those things that, there's a lot of astrologers that debate, like, are we in the age of Aquarius? Well, I certainly believe so. But the thing is here is that this is really activating that energy in a
Mm.
way that we have never experienced in our lifetimes. And it's the first wave. So I really think that, from roughly about, I would say, December 21st until about February of next year,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be a really important time where we are seeing more of this Aquarian energy come into our lives. So one thing that I'd love to kind of turn on you for a second
Mm-hmm.
is, so you are an Aquarius. Talk
Yeah.
to me about what you feel of Aquarian energy. I mean, you live in that body, you live in that spirit, you have that moon sign. Tell me about what it means to be an Aquarius to you, because I'd love to kind of have that perspective as we dive further into this.
Well, I mean, I find being an Aquarius kind of difficult, really, because a lot of the time I don't feel like I fit in anywhere, which I think is really common with Aquarians. We feel like we are I always feel like I'm different, and I've always felt like I was just like this alien in comparison to everybody else, that I see things
Hmm.
in different ways, I understand things in different ways, and I think in a way that a lot of people just don't seem to get. Like certain things, like when I was about 6 or 5, when I realized that the animal in the field was the animal on my plate, I was horrified as a tiny child. I was like, what the hell are you all doing?
Yeah.
And this kind of higher level kind of compassion and empathy that other people don't seem to feel. That's a blessing and a curse, because for me, as somebody who's so empathic and feels other people's pain so much, it makes me an introvert, and it makes me somebody who's very wary about the people I can be around, and so almost like being an Aquarian can be a very lonely existence, because
Hmm.
there's not many people who get you, there's not many people who think like you. And I find, like, I don't really know anybody that thinks in the way that I think, in this sort of very philosophical, but seeing things in such a grand picture, that it
Yes.
isn't just, it's not just one thing. It's, if I'm looking at a problem, say, social housing for people who haven't got very much money, if I look
Hmm.
at something like that, I can't just look at that in that tiny little situation, because I can see the web that attaches everything else to everything else in the world. And so it's literally like being this philosophical humanitarian that feels the pain of these people at the
Hmm.
same time, which can be really quite consuming, which is why, I've had a lot of mental health problems, but while I've been trying to kind of work that out. And
Hmm.
then now my whole business is based on trying to help other people so they
Hmm.
don't have to do what I did alone. So it's that, I think humanitarian, I think is probably the biggest kind of phrase there, but not, like an egalitarian, because it's about all species. For me, it's for everybody and everything. So what you're
Absolutely.
saying with, the great conjunct coming up, I'm really hoping that we see, like you're saying, we've kind of like pillaged the planet. I'm really
Hmm.
hoping that we actually see that we need to change that as we come into the new age with moving into the air signs, because what we're doing at the moment isn't working. So I'm
Absolutely.
praying. But
Absolutely.
does that sound like a typical Aquarian to you?
Well, I mean, generally, yes. And I have an Aquarius moon as well. In my moon is in my 11th house, which is naturally ruled by Aquarius as well. So that
Yeah.
energy really does resonate with me. Community is something that I really want people to think about with the Aquarian energy that we're going into. We're going to be networking. Like look at the internet, look at Facebook, look at all of that kind of connection that has exploded. The way that we are going to be able to communicate much more quickly.
Mm,
And, I do think that, because there is some telepathic association with the Aquarian sign, I do think that that's going to be, further researched and further understood, as well over this time. And I do kind of sense, intuitively and by looking at this in the stars, is that we're going to, whether it is over the next 20 years, um, we're going to be seeing breakthroughs in alien life. We're going to be seeing breakthroughs in space travel,
mm,
possibly time travel. All sorts of things that were of a science fiction, fantasy sort of ideology, and realize, oh wow, these things can actually live in the realm of possibility.
yeah.
I've had conversations with psychics and media professionals about the multiverse
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
multi dimensions and all of that kind of stuff, and realizing that essentially spirituality is a science,
Yeah.
is a form of energy. And whether you're lighting that candle and reciting that prayer, well, that is creating a
Amazing.
tangible reaction
Mm,
in your life because of that power that exists within your mind.
mm.
So all of those the kinds of things. But the other thing that I do want to mention is that every zodiac sign has the beautiful, the wonderful attributes,
Yeah.
but it also has a dark side as well.
Sure
And
does.
so the thing that I do want to bring up is, as much as a lot of people can look at Aquarius and see like, oh, it's super creative and it's super,
Mm,
you know, uh, idealistic and all about building communities and rapport of people and helping the world. Aquarius is one of the most emotionally detached zodiac
yeah.
signs.
People say it to
And
me. Mm,
that's one of the things that I think is really important to mention as well. And that's the thing here, is that we can really tap into you know, the collective, you know, philosophy and ideas of people all over the world. But sometimes that means that we're really not paying attention to the emotional issues, and we're actually putting them under the surface in order to favor logic in the mind.
yeah.
And and that's why I do feel so great about all of the discussions that we'll be having and
Mm,
all of the dialogue. That's something that's really great. But we have to try, certainly over the next 150 years. Granted, we're not all going to be here.
who
But we
knows? Who
need,
knows?
well, yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure there will be, breakthroughs when it comes to, longevity of life and all of and healing of diseases and all of that kind of stuff as well too. But I do think at the base here is that, you know, balance is something that every zodiac sign does need.
Mm,
And so, for instance, I'm a Taurus.
hmm.
you know, I can be, a severe workaholic. I can be very focused on my career. I can be focused on building my business. I can be very, you know, stubborn about those kinds of things. But that is also a curse in itself, is that sometimes that alienates people from me because I don't make as much time necessarily for some
Yeah,
relationships,
yeah.
or I am, you know what I mean? It's like I'm so stubborn in that way, but Taurus is a fixed sign, and so is
I
Aquarius.
know. Yeah, my
And
partner takes
so
my phone away from me. He's like, "You're not working anymore." I'm like, "I
ex-
will work until I kill myself." It's
ex-
ridiculous.
exactly, it's totally same flow.
Mm,
And so that's why I do think that we are going to go through some ups and downs. We're going to go through this evolutionary process. And I'm excited to be alive and
mm,
speaking with you and people all over the world as this transition is going to be taking place, because this is the moment. This is the cusp of the next great awakening.
yeah.
And, it's interesting because I haven't really been seeing any other astrologers or people really talking about it, but that's what this is.
Hmm.
That is an awakening. That is of the mind
Yeah.
and the spirit and the collective rebirth. And it was funny because I can't remember if it was a meme or someone, but it said like after the plague came the Renaissance,
Yes.
and
Yeah. I saw the same
that
thing.
that kind of energy is exactly what I've been talking about,
Yeah.
and that's why I do think that there will be rebirths of art. There are going to be a lot of exciting new social media platforms, ways of connecting. But
Mm.
at the heart of the matter, we have to remember that there is someone on the opposite side of that text, that email, that call, and it's important to truly unite our hearts as well as our minds.
Mm. I mean, I find it interesting that a lot of astrologers aren't kind of dealing with that, but from what I've noticed as somebody who deals with people with energy, and obviously, I work with energy and have a connection to whatever that thing is up there that talks to us all. But that what I'm finding is that the people who have that connection are all
Hmm.
talking about this. It's all being, that for some reason we're all getting that download that
Yeah.
this is something that's important and we all need to suddenly look at it. Because I had it a little while back and I was like, great conjunction, hang on a minute. And then it was like, I mean, interesting enough, what brought it up for me was it's in The Dark Crystal. Do you remember the film? I don't know if you've seen the film The Dark Crystal, but you're probably about my age. So we were probably both kids when this came out.
Yeah.
And there's the oracle lady in there who she talks about the Great Conjunction, and this is where the power for the Dark Crystal comes from, which is like a really interesting allegory that I think that has suddenly been put into the zeitgeist when we were children as
Yeah.
something that kind of gets planted into your subconscious, and then
Absolutely.
I sort of saw this and I was like, hang on a minute. And the oracle, I loved what the oracle said, because she was like, could be the beginning of time, could be the end, whatever happens happens. And I was
Yes.
like, it's just beautiful, because this is like that kind of Buddhist ideology of like, if what will be.
Yes.
And like you say, the astrology doesn't necessarily define everything. It's the same way, I read tarot and I say to my clients, this is the energy of things at the moment, and this is the energy of things that will be. But this is where you're at. If you change your energy, you change the way that you're behaving.
Hmm.
You can change all of these things.
Yes.
And I'm really excited for the Great Conjunction, because I feel like you say that this is a great awakening, and I've seen with a lot of my clients that, or people in my life that I would say are much more asleep than maybe
Hmm.
some of us others who are very kind of connected to that energy. And they've all been going like, hang on a minute, and they want to tap out of the matrix. They're like, I'm a slave. This is, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And COVID has brought this situation to a lot of people where they realize that their jobs are not safe, where their money doesn't really mean anything, that they spend 40 hours a week. Most people working, doing a job that they don't like, and they don't get to see the people that they love. And
Hmm.
then now that they can't see the people that they love and they're just sat at home working, they're going like, what is this life? And there certainly has been a very big awakening, I feel, big shift in perception and understanding over the last sort of 8 to 9 months, certainly. So certainly since January, like you say. Do you have any advice for people coming into December, looking at kind of the energy of the Great Conjunction that's coming up in December? Do you have any advice? Because I know the last sort of few months have been brutal for a lot of people, spiritually, emotionally, physically.
Well, the big thing to really focus upon, I think, here is that we are still in the midst of Mars retrograde. And Mars retrograde is very intense because it is energy, it's passion, it's drive, it's sex. And the way that I always talk about any sort of retrograde is that it carries a karmic lesson depending on what the planet rules and where it falls in the sky.
Okay.
And Mars, like I said, is passion, drive, focus, and it's in Aries, which is our ego, our
Mm.
hungers, our desires, the things that we want in our heart that we will go to war for, that we will fight for. And Mars has been in excuse me, it's in Aries since the end of June and is going to stay here until January 6th of 2021. So that's 6 months. That's a very long time, but that is because of the retrograde, which began on September 9th and is going to last until November 13th. So in this period, it's time to surrender. It's
Mm-hmm.
time to really reevaluate your ego needs, your hungers, your desires, and how you go about approaching those specific situations. This is also a time where karmic conflicts may come up because the thing is, when Mars's energy is turned inside, it makes it's combustible.
Mm.
It's aggressive internally. It makes us frustrated, anxious, nervous. We want to lash out. And so this is a time not to initiate fights. It's a time not to, launch new products, launch new ideas. This is a time to close chapters, to release and heal truly the wounds that need to be healed.
Mm.
And that's a big thing that I also focus upon too, is because, in order, for instance, let's say people, often find this with people when they're like, when am I going to find love? And I'm like, okay,
Mm.
well, we can talk about, all of these important timings when it comes to your charts and where the planets are moving and where the activation is. But then I often find that a lot of these same people are still holding on to an ex or
Mm-hmm.
holding on to trauma or shame. And the thing about this is that you need to cleanse that and find a resolution with that, whether that is actually with a person. And sometimes it's not healthy to open a toxic door to love and call it
Yeah.
closure.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better to do the inner work on your own, or work
Mm.
with a therapist or a healer or an astrologer or a counselor or whatever it be. But this is a time to slow down and to really think about, what really matters at the end of the day. Because once Mars returns back to normal orbit, we'll be seeing our lives pick up much more speed. So certainly from November 14th, like November is still going to feel pretty lethargic. No, October is the slowest month of the year, but by December things are clicking along. But by January, things are moving much faster. It's much better. So that's just really important for us to really reflect on that. For instance, even with myself, I've my schedule is insane. Like, I'm so grateful. I've never been happier, but I sometimes will work 16-hour days. And I'm
Yeah.
not even joking. Like, I literally, like, I clock in usually 75 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's pretty typical for me, and it's insane. And that's my boyfriend's like, Kyle, you need to stop.
Mm.
But I had this realization, interestingly enough, a couple weeks ago, where I don't really have hobbies anymore. And the
Yeah.
thing is that astrology and tarot and, doing everything that I do now in media and television and all of this, that was, my hobbies and what I was pushing for 5 years ago.
Mm.
But now it's my full-time thing. So what I've realized is that I'm like, okay, I need to pick up my hobbies. So I just went out and I bought a bunch of books. I'm reading Game of Thrones, I'm reading things just for fun and pleasure again. And
Yeah.
and that's because of this Mars retrograde pace, being like, you know what, Kyle, you can burn yourself out, but at the end of the day, that's not going to be happy for you. You can't do what you love. And I
Yeah.
think that that's important for people to apply that to their lives, however that really falls for them. So that's really a big thing that I think that's important to note. And then also Mercury retrograde is also taking place in October of 2020. So it starts officially on October 13th. It lasts until November 3rd. And this is reviewing the Scorpio and Libra area of the sky. So that's drawing attention to our imbalances in our relationships collectively,
Mm.
how we relate to people, how we are in our romantic relationships, how we are in our business relationships, how we just are connecting. And, again, Mercury's the mind, communication, and it gives us this opportunity to slow down and clear our minds. And with a lot of this Scorpio energy taking place, I really think it's important to infuse the nature of balancing your mind with your heart.
Mm.
Because the thing is that it's very rare for me to find somebody that's like pretty imbalanced in both
Yeah.
ways. Like,
Mm.
usually we're either super dominated by our logic and our mind,
Mm.
or there's the people that are just like so dominated by their emotions. And that's here. This is the Mercury retrograde, that this mental planet in the submerged stormy seas of Scorpio, trying to find that equilibrium, that harmony for ourselves. So really spend October, taking a step back, sleep, rest, have fun with that. Use that energy in the beginning of, certainly November. And then the interesting thing that's crazy too is that this year it literally doesn't stop. Then we move right into eclipse season. We have an eclipse on November 30th in Gemini. We have an eclipse in Sagittarius on December 14th. I mean, it's just the universe we've been living in a place of, for a lot of people, complacency.
Yeah.
And for a lot of other people, they have been living in a place of, disharmony, I guess you would say. And, that's what all of these challenging aspects are here to do, is to push us out of our comfort zones, to end the things that are not here, that are ultimately serving our higher good, so that as we are given this beautiful, majestic gift from the universe of the Great Conjunction, we can finally step into that next life.
Oh my God, I love it. So powerful and so potent. And I could think I could talk to you forever, to be honest.
I love you. I love you.
I just love, love hearing people that have got so much knowledge and so much wisdom to share. So how can people get hold of you, Kyle, if they want to get hold of you? Give me your social media and your website.
Absolutely. So my website is kylethomasastrology.com. I release tons of horoscopes, power horoscopes, graphs, compatibility charts, all sorts of information on there for free for everyone to check out. It's always really wonderful when people share that kind of information online, because at the end of the day, I really just want to bring more light to the world and help people and give them a guide so that they have more power in creating their life and choosing how they want to move forward. So, like I said, I post everything on there, usually months in advance. So kylethomasastrology.com. You can also book a reading with me there. I do all sorts of different readings. I do focus primarily on predictions and looking at how you can find when to strike for certain aspects. I'm not the kind of astrologer that likes to kind of look at your chart and be like, oh, you're going to get married at 37 years old and have 3 marriages. And, that I don't feel like that kind of fatalistic prediction is ever helpful, because it takes away your power. It takes away your choice. And so, whereas I can say, like, you're attracted to these certain kinds of relationships, you should be aware of these patterns. I don't want to tell someone, something that at the end of the day is just going to ultimately make them a slave to the stars or a slave to their destiny. Like I said, I want to really empower people. So that's my focus when it comes to my readings there. But then my social media, the main one that I work on is Instagram, and that is Mr. Kyle Thomas. So MrKylethomas. And, I post daily horoscopes, daily forecasts, all sorts of, media there. And at the end of the day, I love connecting with you. I love, swapping messages and hearing about people's lives, because like I said, I want to make sure that together, collectively, we are building a place of love, happiness, and hope.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I feel like we're heading there, and certainly, connecting with more people, like just on Instagram, like you say, having more social platforms where we can all get in touch and actually make something that can be quite vacuous into being something quite solid and something that's full of really good energy and wonderful connection. So I'm absolutely honored to have connected with you today, Carl. I know that my listeners are going to absolutely adore this. And for anybody listening, I'm going to put all the links down below so you can get in touch with Kyle himself. But I absolutely adore you, Kyle. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you have a fantastic day. And yeah, good luck. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All of my love to you.